everybody else on it?
Yeah. Maybe that's all time.
Okay, y'all, we are live.
Okay, we'll go ahead and, call meeting to order. We'll go ahead, at this time, we'll go ahead and, take roll call for the Economic Development Committee meeting. Here time is 7:01 p.m., 19 August 2020. We'll start our roll call off from the far right.
John Kodowski, Matthew McCrossin.
Ron Lane,
Stevie Sides.
and we have one online.
Catherine, can you state your name?
Catherine Mitchell.
Okay, so at this time we'll have a quorum, and we're going to begin the meeting. Call to order. We're going to read supplement public hearing. Public hearing on proposed maintenance operating interest and sinking and capital budgets for fiscal year ending FY 2021. Proposed EDC budgets include economic development projects as defined by Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 505, Type Bravo Corporations. EDC FY ending 2021 projects include the following: expenditures, maintenance, and operating interest and sinking debit services, personal and benefit office rental, membership, audit fees, conferences, workshop, and seminars, legal and financial fees, conceptual design, land use planning, marketing, and social media campaigns, special events marketing, website development, and maintenance, managed services with city Old Town Lowe's parking lot lease, land acquisitions, economic development, reimbursements, Google 360 tours, small business loan grants, incentives, city visitors and tourism centers, splash pad, and sidewalks. Now conclude the public hearing.
No one's saying.
All right. EDC meeting this evening is an open session. Do we have any citizens to be heard?
No, Mr. President.
All right, no citizens to be heard. The EDC cannot discuss any present issues, nor may any action be taken on an issue at this time. Attorney General Opinion JC 0169. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and the time is not transferable. Discussion by EDC of any item not on the agenda shall be limited to statements of specific factual information given in response to any inquiry. A recitation of existing policy in response to any inquiry and or proposal to place the item on a figure EDC agenda. All right, close the open session. We'll go ahead at this time, have a motion to open up consent and agenda items number 4 and 5.
Motion to approve items 4 and 5 is written. I'll second.
Now we have a second. Items for individual consideration.
We have,
Nope.
all in favor, say
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion 4 and 5. Aye. All right.
Aye.
Motions 4 and 5 passed. Items for individual consideration. Number 6. Number 6. Discussion and direction on utilizing funds from the EDC operating account number 05-510-5211. Marketing and tourism for the purchase of reusable shopping tote bags to promote Shop Helotes. Staff. Go to item number 6. Caption of the discussion is discussion of and direction on utilization of funds to begin at item number 5. Marketing tourism for purchase of reusable shopping totes and bags to promote Shop Helotes. All right. Background: based on the input from the board during the 15 July meeting, staff would approve quotes based on 3 design options. Select. The quotes range from $1,405 to $6,515, depending on the imprinting method and quality. The financial options: option 1, color imprinted logo, 1,000 totes for $1,968. Option 2, color imprinted logo, 1,000 tote bags, $3,379. Option 3, full color on 2 sides on 1,000 tote bags, $6,964. And option 4, 4 colors, 4 sides on 2,500 tote bags for $6,989. Attachments are bags, option A. So this time we'll go ahead and review and look over the options and have a discussion. Well, it looks like, I think that we're getting closer on the choice of bags within the shop of Helotes Arena. Anybody at this time have any particular thoughts, reference between options 1 and 4, opinion?
First of all, Glenn, do we plan to charge for these, or will we be giving them away?
We've always given them away in the past.
Okay.
It's kind of I would say a pain to keep track of small transactions like that.
I think that's a great idea.
And I would like to first say apologies for not putting a picture of the graphic in here. The intent was to have an actual sample of the bag tonight. The vendor didn't notify me until this afternoon that the only way we could get a one-off sample was to do a heat transfer, and the detail ended up being so fine they couldn't weed the design out, so we couldn't have the actual sample with the Texas logo and the one with the shop Helotes Texas on there. Yeah, they suggested that obviously we move forward with those 1 or 2 color designs that we're going to have to do screen print. They did provide me with, and you guys saw the original shop Helotes bag with a red bag with a white logo, so you have an idea of at least the contrast, what it looks like. And then that side is a full color logo. So if you want, I can pass these around. And then there's 2 options on here on the dye sublimation, which would again be full color. So one of them would be doing this is an estimate based on 1,000, just to try to kind of compare apples to apples on all these different bags. This version, you'll notice you can print each side, but the side panels are not colored. So technically, the minimum on that one is like 650 bags. By doing it that way, you can look at how the color is different than this version, how it kind of looks pixelated. It's not actually, it's printed on there. It's not a true dye sublimation in this sense. This is a laminated. The laminated version, the minimum order, and there was just no way of getting around it to be full wrap, is 2,500 bags. But as you can see in the 2 cost breakdowns of our dye sublimation, 1,000 bags on the 2-sided was $6,900 with shipping, and the 2,500 was $6,900 with shipping. So each, more than 2.5 times as many bags on that full wrap, the laminated version. It's still the most expensive option.
So what we're choosing tonight is the type bag. We already chose the design, right? From the last meeting?
So the board narrowed it down between 3 designs, and my apologies for not having it here. My phone actually won't pull it up because it's not a compatible file format. Was the Texas outline with shop Helotes in the middle, possibly on a red bag, the red and white contrast, and the other one was just the shop Helotes Texas, that spelled out Texas, didn't have the outline. Because that was a 2-color imprint, and the other was a 1-color imprint.
Right.
And that's the price difference. So a 1-color imprint is $1,900 for 1,000 bags, and a 2-color imprint is almost $3,400. And I think it's substantially more expensive to go with the 2nd color. And the one with the Texas outline looks really sharp.
Have they given us a price on the one that has the drawings of old Helotes?
That would be a full color imprint, yes. And then I did bring the original artwork for that.
That would be option 3 or 4, correct?
Yes, option 3 or 4. And what we could do with that, I did find kind of a neat example. We could almost do a sepia kind of look to where it's around white, a little vintage if we wanted. I mean, it's up in the air. The black and white is not.
So the last meeting, I think Marion said something about cost, that while we were willing to spend X amount of money, I forget why, but don't go crazy, basically. I forget what figure we were talking about when we started throwing out all the different designs and possibilities.
I think because last time we were looking at almost $8,000, $8,000 or $9,000.
Okay.
And I was like, do we really want to spend that much? You know, only because with a lot of COVID, the stores are not letting you bring your own bags. Some of the stores are not letting you bring your own bags, so they're not going to use it for that right now. Not sure what the future is going to do on that. We have ordered other marketing stuff. I know it's not on the agenda, but I'll just give you a heads up since we are talking about marketing. We have ordered some hand sanitizers and looking at some masks, just to kind of give out as that, because it is what's marketable right now to give out people from where.
Yeah. And that's a good point.
And so if we're going to spend the money, that's where we'd like
Okay.
to spend it on. We've been trying to look at this since December, this was before
Right.
COVID. So this is something, that's up to y'all, that's why we just kept bringing it back to
Okay.
y'all. It is pricey, the big price of it is shipping. Y'all, the shipping is almost $1,000 to get this shipped.
Where
Because
are they
it's coming
coming
from China.
It's coming from China?
Yes.
Can't try it.
Yeah, especially like 2,500 bag count, it's $934.
Yeah, so I would like y'all to consider all this when you're looking at this.
Yeah, well,
And is this the best, I don't know if this is a project you still want us to go with,
wait,
as of right now. We do still have, we put marketing money for next year's budget, that's up to y'all. I don't want to influence y'all in any way, I want to give y'all all the facts of what that $6,000, almost $7,000 is in there for. I don't know if people will utilize it. They can't right now at the stores. They can use it for their own personal, but just going out there using it elsewhere for shopping, it can't be utilized right now. In the near future, it could be. I don't know.
can you recap for me that in the distribution of these, I have a couple of things. In the distribution of these, are we charging a fee for a portion of it, or
They've been given out for free.
they're giving out for free?
So they, points of distribution, honestly, if any of the shop owners call and request them, I'll give them a handful. But usually they're given out at marketplace or movie night at city events where there's traffic. They'll have a box of them set out, and then we've taken them to some of the trade shows we've gone to. And it's just a giveaway. On 1,000 bags, it usually takes about a year and a half to go through them.
Okay. But one of the things, and there's also, in looking at the bag choice as far as the quality of the bag, I think that there is a marketing piece to this, in the sense that some of the cheaper bags that are printed, what are those made of, those plastic bags, the way it handles versus in option 1, the way the handle's mounted on here, I can tell you by experience that this type of bag and sewn this particular way is a much longer lasting, more reusable bag, because what happens with those particular ones is as soon as the people, they load it up, at least one pumpkin worth of weight, before you even get done shopping or doing what you're doing, the bag's already torn. So I guess there's a sense of, do we want to provide something that is of quality? So, I think the overall the money is already there. It is a significant piece. We buy cheap bags, what we have is a cheap look, and they don't last, and people will just throw them away. Versus continue to use them, maybe advertisement, it's not continued advertisement if they're thrown away.
Correct.
And we've wasted our money, to turn around and get more, but I think if you give somebody, or, also, a lot of probably wives appreciate a quality type one, because I know my wife, we have some that we've maintained in the house that are, wow, that's a good bag, we're not gonna, or, we're gonna keep that. Other ones you have that are maybe like that, one-time use, and it's gone. So I would, just putting that out there as a recommendation in view of, or in light of some of the costs that are presented, that we try to go with a better quality bag in lieu of price. Any additional thoughts on that?
And the odd thing, that bag's the cheapest one out of those presented, and it's the,
Right. But
That's
if our
quality.
logo and everything works on it, great. It's a sturdy, reusable bag.
absolutely. And that one is designed for
I don't
purchase.
think anybody has a different view about that,
Oh, I agree, most definitely. But would we be able to get this out? We could.
No.
We'd have to go with one of the other two logos.
So the logo we're going with is that particular one, or?
No, we had the three choices, either that one or the other two Helotes with the Texas outline, or, the
Yeah.
two color or the one color. That one only worked with those two bags. Those two, the
Dye sublimation, yeah.
sublimation bags. For that bag, it has to go with the other two logos.
And maybe we wanna do split type purchase.
Well, the problem is that because of the quantity, the pricing,
Right.
it's better.
And then the setup and everything, that'll be
Yeah.
more,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, if you go with that full color, we'd have to order 2,500 bags.
Well, I guess it comes down to making a determination out of the three designs that we have. Do we wanna nix one of the designs that say wouldn't fit on a better quality bag? Or we keep that other design because we're just that much in love with it, and we buy the cheaper throwaway disposable type bags?
I quite frankly am for the better quality.
So if we go with the better quality, we selected 3 designs last time, correct?
Two.
2?
Two.
Okay, so,
And for the red bag, we'd selected the white Texas outline with Shop Helotes in the middle, and that had the URL. And then we talked about going with a royal blue bag if we did the other logo. And it was just the standard logo.
okay, so we're gonna select one logo for tonight and then select one quality of bag? Or were we mixing and matching?
No, we're not mixing it.
Okay. So if we go with the red one here, that's option 1, right?
Yes.
With one logo only, and it'd come out to, for 1,000, it'd come out to 190, well, 1968 plus 1,000 in shipping, or what was that?
No,
That price includes shipping.
That includes
by the way.
Oh,
Yes, that's all in. That's the setup fee and everything. So yeah, $1.97 a bag.
And you said that's only one logo on
On
both sides?
On both
One
sides.
colored logo on one side.
It would basically be this in the white, we would do it in white where it says the Helotes with the Texas, with the Texas outline. So basically the Texas with the shop
So-
Helotes
right.
and the URL on both sides.
One side.
So what
Oh,
is
one side,
One
one
side.
side,
So
one
what,
side.
so what if you use both logos that you have?
So this is.
You could buy
the original.
2,000
Yeah.
bags essentially for
with the URL.
the price of option 3 and 4 for less.
The logos are.
The thing
I
is
can
that,
do 6 3/4.
in the past,
is
it's
the
only,
biggest.
for us to go through about
Yeah,
1,000
okay.
bags, it
Yeah.
took us about a year, is what Glenn was saying.
So you wanna be able to renew that the following year.
Right.
Would you say, that's the,
So I think if
Oh,
we
okay.
go with this now, this knocks a project out, and then we can, hopefully, prices come down next year, and that, what do you call it, the dye, the full
Size information.
dye sublimation one with the mural could be an option,
correct.
because we may, I doubt we'll get to 1,000 within the next 12 months. And so we should have a stockpile, and then we should be able to go ahead and, have the funds and knock that project out again and get the mural out there. And then, once all these events start kicking off, we have both bags out there in circulation.
Correct.
You could, the option to that is, option one has 600 bags and the silk screen on it was only $55. You could still do 1,200 bags and do both options on the selected printing, and still would be a very favorable cost. You would still only be talking probably about $200 more than what your estimated 1,900 or some odd dollars for option one package is. Just a thought.
So that pricing on that second page, the 600 at $1.88, doesn't include the setup fees and doesn't include shipping.
So the setup fee for one logo was it, you know how much that was?
Yes. You'd be almost $1,700 for 600 bags. And that's why going for 1,000 bags, you know, is
The more
1968.
bags you buy, it's actually cheaper,
The
because
price-
there's a price break.
The price drops to me significantly by going to 1,000.
Or if you could buy 1,200 bags for $3,400, which the lowest option next to option one is $3,400. I mean, I don't think it really matters what the setup fee is, but I'm saying you get 1,200 bags for $3,400. So what I'm doing is,
Okay, if you go back to the agenda item request, that one color imprint bag, the red one that's in front of you, you get 1,000 bags for $19.68.
correct.
That's including shipping. And like I said, the shipping is anywhere from $700 to $900.
So would the option be, or consent be, only to have one bag, one type logo is good?
For now.
Okay.
Where is that? Catherine's on?
Catherine, what is,
Just trying to present that.
You need a motion in this. second.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and make a motion, and we have to end the discussion, we'll make a motion
Catherine chime in?
to go ahead and
Catherine,
elect option number one
You can't hear like the phone.
for the, type bag
Bathroom.
to have our Chocolate Lotus, logo placed on it for $1,989 for 1,000 bags. Have a motion,
I so move.
I'll second.
second. The motion passes.
We got all those in favor, say aye.
All those in favor? Sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. And moving on to item number 7. Presentation of the proposed FY 2020-21 EDC operating budget. Raymond Mendoza, Executive Director.
there are two changes on the budget as proposed from last time. One of them was the change that you actually requested to increase the marketing. And what we did is we separated it as a separate line item, so you can see it from the regular marketing and the events marketing. So it shows you as two separate line items. And you'll see it under 510, 5211, you'll see a blank little, under the contractual services, it'll say marketing city events, and that's the 110 you requested me to increase that line item to. So I did that. The other change that I made was the, where is it at? Let me get to it. What line item is it? Managed services, under that, the 5214, we had talked about it and I had mentioned it and I thought more about it and I want to present this to you. It was at 15,000 and I'm looking at asking to increase it to 30. And the reason is that I went back and I sat down with the staff and looked at the time that they spend on EDC stuff. And I also looked at when this actually came about. So in fiscal year 12 and 14, it was at 8,000. In fiscal year 15, it was at 12,000. Fiscal year 16 and 17, it was at 15,000. For some reason, in fiscal year 18 and 19, it was dropped down to 5,400. Not sure why it did that. Then it was back brought up to 15,000. Well, during all that time, of course, salaries have changed. People's, that have worked with EDC has changed. And if you, like I said, if you go back into 15 and fiscal year 16 and 17, it was at 15,000 at one point. I don't know why it decreased to 5,400 a few years back. So I looked at what staffing it takes to help run EDC, because it is not just a one-man show. There is other people. So it does take about 25% of my time. It takes about 5% of our finance director's time, 5% of our purchasing, which does our checks, our accounts payable, our checks, all that stuff. 8% of our public relations, 3% of our city secretary. She reviews all our agendas and all our agenda items, making sure that the resolutions match, making sure that there's no other conflicts and so forth, making sure our agendas are right. And then our human resources to process payroll, and I hope it's about 1.3%. I basically got everybody, there's 75 employees, I divided her time by 75, it was 1.3% is basically I did her. So with their salaries, not including benefits, just salaries. I didn't go in there and include the FICA that we pay or the insurance benefits or anything else, just pure salary. That comes out to about $38,176. Now, I didn't ask for the full amount because Glenn does help the city on some of that. So I thought, okay, that 8,000 covers what Glenn helps the city. And I know there has been back and forth about, EDC's part of this, the city's part of that, but I do feel like it is each helping each other, but it is still certain revenues back and forth. So I am requesting that we do increase that to 30,000 to be able to help support the services that are provided by these certain, individuals from the city. So I think that justifies that. I hope the board feels the same, but that is up to you all. We would bring the service agreement back. This is just in the budget. We will bring the service agreement back in September because it has to be approved as an agreement. So that comes back in September for approval.
I'm in agreement.
Anybody discussion on this?
On the whole budget, I got a few questions on the whole budget and this one specifically.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, well actually, yeah, it was a great breakdown, because that was a question I had.
Mm-hmm.
So the new question on that starting first is,
Okay.
with all the research that you did
Uh-huh.
on that outside of just looking back, because that's not something that I even looked at last year. I would have saw fiscal, I should have saw about 15 to 16 there, and noticed that, the first year in. Is that something that you made do you have like a continuity book, so that's the snippets like that, research you went through and already figured out, that way?
I don't have a book. I
Okay.
actually looked through, we have a laserfish, so we have
Okay.
database. And I went and I pulled every single one of EDC's budget to see, because I didn't know how this even started. You know what I mean? If a managed
Yeah.
agreement. And I went and I looked through the budget to see what has ever been charged. The budgets have been very vague in the past. They were just through in code. They weren't as detailed as with presentations. Even the city budget wasn't as detailed. And so I had to go in there and look to see, what it was. And then I started seeing, and that's the first time I saw a charge was in 2012 was the first time I saw a line item charge.
I'll just the only suggestion I have is that for future, like 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, future board members, you know, once you guys retire and take a break from serving the city and working late,
Yeah.
that's probably a question that might come up again, like why?
Well, that's why
So-
like if you notice on these, we like to put the notes, and that's what I would
Yeah.
add on the notes on these.
Okay.
And this will become part of the budget document. And that's what we did, if you review our city budget, you'll see that also on our city budget, which is online. It gives notes on any changes on what we're changing, like if we're moving,
Alright.
if we're reallocating stuff and moving it from one place to the other, we're putting notes on there. That wasn't done in the past, that's something we're doing now.
Awesome. So, yeah, I still got some more questions, but
Okay.
on that item specifically with your justifications, I'm in support of it. So starting off with the first question on the budget, you know, I kind of recall, I can't remember specifically, you guys have told me before, but where do we get this mixed beverage income from?
That's from the sales tax, mixed beverage sales tax.
And isn't that like 50%, we're talking alcohol, right?
But we've gotten so we get the same percentage as we get sales tax.
Okay.
So just like it's basically a half a cent. It's so on sales tax, it's 8%, right? So we get basically half, a 0.5 of a cent.
Right.
So on beverage tax, we get 0.5 of that percentage. And what is our beverage sales tax?
So 2 years ago, the Texas legislature changed the mixed beverage tax, and they reduced it from
It was 14.
14. Yeah, they reduced it down, but then they added a sales tax component that we didn't used to collect. So it is a new revenue source for us over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try and remember that this year.
And on some restaurants that you go to, it will actually break down the percentage of how much is the actual mixed beverage versus how much is the sales tax
Sales tax.
component.
Okay.
Some of them will break it down on the receipt.
Yeah, because it used to be 14.25, and now it's a formula.
Okay, that was just something to clear up.
And we're down by 50%.
There's no bars open.
We're down by 50%.
And then, so I already, as Glenn helped me with the agenda item, we already discussed the strategic work plan, because I brought up several points to that. And one of them that he brought up was a good point that relates to legal fees in our budget. I don't know if you guys have discussed what we were trying to address last year with trying to get that via sales tax released from the ETJ, and that was like something about 1.2 million or something. And apparently back and forth, Glenn filled me in. Right now, we'd have to get that on a Bear County election, and that's a maybe, and that would cost money. So, you know, he gave me his feedback on that, and I agree with it. And so, without going after that and spending all the legal money to try and get the sales tax, and that's obviously a work plan goal we got to address in the future. The legal fees is, what are we going to spend legal fees on next year?
So anytime we ask them a question, just like when we asked them a question about the CARES fund money, we've spent money. Yeah, so I called Frank because we needed some clarification on the CARES fund, and to see, like, they asked us, okay, are you a separate entity, blah, blah, blah. So anytime we ask them anything about EDC things that come on the agenda, those are the legal fees.
Okay, so it's just an increase of 1,000 then?
Yeah, just because there might be some items that might come up that we did ask this year, that we didn't anticipate.
Okay. And then, I don't know how this is gonna sound, but for what we're paying the web agency for the EDC, what exactly are they doing for that?
So they're doing this year, they're gonna revamp the whole website.
Okay.
They're actually gonna revamp the whole website. We've actually, a contract with them to revamp the website, because we are making it a lot cleaner. And I believe in everything being less than 2 clicks away. I also believe in it being visual and being very clean. And when your news things should be all uniformed. There is not a uniformed look to it. Also, everything should, I believe your news picture should be 330 by 330. That's usually the size. It also needs to be ADA compliant, which it is not on our website, and it needs to be where it is mobile compatible, which it is not. So those are all the things they're doing. So they're going to revamp, because they're doing the city website,
Okay,
and they're also going to do the EDC website.
all right.
And they're switching platforms, because right
Yeah.
now we're on Expression Engine,
We're going to go with
which is
WordPress.
very limited on.
I'm like, why?
3 years ago, but all right.
We're going with simple template so that when we go in there and we can make our own changes, it all is the same font, the same
Okay.
color, everything.
Okay, so when they do upgrade to the WordPress platform, and that's like the standard right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's super simple, and I'm out in the chamber out teaching Rachel there how to do it, because you do it a few times. Now, with that said, are we paying for, in this budget, for website redesign and development, because they're gonna go back and develop? And then, because I assume Glenn or you or somebody is gonna be doing updates themselves, or are they gonna?
Mhm.
So is that factored in the monthly contract, or are we still gonna pay?
No, what we're gonna do is this year, it will be factored in, and after that, we're not. So I realized when I came in there, my first question was, why are we paying them a fee? And then, so they are guaranteed us so many hours. So I said, okay, we're gonna utilize you for right now, those many hours, and you're gonna redevelop our website. You're not gonna charge us more, you're gonna redevelop it within those hours. And so that is what's gonna happen this year. Next year, as we don't need to utilize that will decrease, and we won't have to pay that much.
All right. And then, in terms of the rent increase here, the budget, is there any word from the property owner?
Yes.
Yes.
I actually talked to him, or did speak with him today, but also got confirmation on the contract that it will only go up $100. So we'll be at $1,000 a month. I told him that we would be interested in doing a 3-year extension. And he said if we do, then he would only up it at $100 each
year.
additional year. So $1,000 a month this year. For the next 12 months, after that, $1,100 and then $1,200.
Oh, wow. All right, thank you.
Maybe with an option to buy it later. The whole
That would be
thing.
great.
Really? Well, and then that gets me to my last and final question about the, about the visitor center. I saw we got 50K allocated, for next year, and we had some goals on that. Are you guys anticipating to knock out one of those projects, or?
Well, what we're hoping to do is at least do the research and see what's out there to see, because
Okay.
what the visitor center is that, we have the city actually has hot sales tax, hotel taxes, basically, but it can only be used for certain things, but one of the things it could be used is for a visitor center. And so that would be a great use of combination of resources for EDC as well as the city to combine their resources and do something like this. And so, it's like I said, that money it can only be used for hotel or it's very limited. So this would be a great avenue. It's not a lot right now because we only started collecting, really collecting. We got a company about, a year and a half, 2 years ago, Glenn? Do you know?
I think about 2
Yeah, maybe
years.
2 years ago, where we got a company that went after a lot of the Airbnbs and so forth, so we started collecting taxes. So it's not as much as, other cities and so forth, but it is growing. And so maybe when we're ready for it, it'll be at least enough or significant to help out with this project. So that's our goal. We're gonna at least use this money this 50,000 is not to break ground, but at least to do the research to find out what's feasible, what's out there, where is it needed, what's the best place for it, and what else is needed. The space, the amount of space and the services to be provided for the city, as in general, in our businesses.
That 50,000 probably just cover the environmental impact study. That's probably about it.
Yeah, and this, like I said, this is just to at least start.
This would
starting
be a
that.
conceptual design.
Yeah, a conceptual
This wouldn't be
design.
going into any other phases of.
I can go in there and look at it and just say, well, now, no impact, no impact.
I'm gonna try and cause it. Put that stamp on there and we're good, right?
See any, funny looking birds, I'll let you know.
Now, just one last question, since Glenn brought up was he being facetious about purchasing the building, or was he kind of serious?
No, he was serious. He said in a couple of years he would be interested in selling it.
Did he throw a price out there?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
I think we need to think about that and what we feel it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, it's an option, right? Like, especially if we get first offer.
Yeah, I think that's his option, is he would love it to be first offer, you know.
Okay, cool.
Yes, yeah, we'll have a first right of refusal. He's moved out of Helotes up to near Canyon Lake for his retirement, and he still loves Helotes and wants to make sure that, you know, things continue to move forward and keep the small town, you know, charm and everything. Anyway.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion, questions, any issues?
I move to approve the, the increases in the various, the work plan.
We need to make a motion to increase,
We would just motion to approve number 7 as discussed, or presented,
right.
because we didn't ask to change anything.
So we have a motion to approve the discussion, item number 7, for the FY 2021 EDC operating budget.
So I motion that we approve number 7 as staff presented.
And then we'll come back in September for final adoption.
I second.
All in favor?
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
And motion is passed, item number 7, for the proposed 2021 EDC budget. Moving to item number 8. Discussion of and direction on creating a policy decision matrix that will be utilized to evaluate projects and expenditures over $10,000 or another expenditure amount agreed upon by the board of directors to ensure unplanned projects brought to the EDC align with the current strategic work plan. And Matthew, across.
So can I motion to discuss on my own
No.
item? I can't, right?
No.
Yeah. It's Robert's rules.
We have a motion for discussion.
I move to discuss, item,
Item number 8.
number 8.
And I'll second.
All right. So Stevie, go ahead and start off the discussion.
Okay. Well, I certainly am impressed with the proposed matrix, and I think that it definitely is something that would be very useful. However, I would like to point out that the splash pad and the sidewalk items were approved because they were in accordance with Goal 4, Priority 2, continue to promote and encourage day tripping and other forms of tourism within Helotes. And yes, I do support the matrix.
Okay, so I'll just fill in. So after discussing, after one of the meetings with Marion about several other things here, she's the one that gave me the idea that a decision matrix would be a better tool, And as we were in our discussion and we were chatting about the things that, last year caught me off guard, looking through this work plan, all the time and effort that we had put into it earlier in the year, and then, particularly the splash pad. I use that as a case study and how, not just how it could have helped me last year, but down the road with new board members who are looking at this. They might actually have read the Texas Municipal League handbook, and they might know what a Type B EDC is, etc. And so when you look at all these goals that we have and the projects under them, what I'm trying to do is, one, check myself, make sure that I'm, making informed decisions that are in line with the work effort and our goals. And then two, set up, the future boards for success. So they have a tool to reference, not just a strategic work plan, which I guess the strategic part would be that we change it once a year. So in business, 5-10 years, a corporation would decide what constitutes a strategic plan by a year or an iteration of funding, etc. What you just brought up, that I would have considered. Hopefully future board members would have considered that too, the day tripping part. That's a good example. And in the bullet points that I wrote up, and hopefully it makes sense, the tool itself, if I was looking at it, and maybe it's just me, and how I work in business, but if I was going through that checklist, and we had a collaborative session, and just like what Marion brought up when we were discussing this, I think we could have had more options that would have, in my mind, as I was thinking about it, possibly found better site selection, included businesses around. You mentioned the Pearl has one, I think.
Pearl has one and the Hemisphere has one.
I mean, so those are good examples. And so, recalling the vote that I cast last year, had I had that in mind, maybe there would have been more, discussion, more input like that. I don't know. I mean, that's the past, but I'm using it as a case study for this tool. Because I think, that was perhaps a missed opportunity, because we could have accomplished a municipal goal. We clearly would accomplish the day tripping goal. We could have maximized the opportunity by perhaps, taking, all these properties that are in the process of being developed, saying, hey, here's an idea. We happen to have some money. We also happen to have a project we want to do. Let's see if the land next to you is for sale, and how many businesses are going to be here, and all right. And so we have something like the Pearl, and what was the other place?
The Hemisphere.
Hemisphere.
Yeah, when they did the Hemisphere, that's what they did. They actually had the land, so they decided to do a splash pad, and then they built literally the retail and the food around that, and used that as a center to attract people, and then attract the retail and that certain retail for that clientele to come and utilize that area.
Okay. And I mean, that was all part of the discussion. That was opened my eyes, is what I'm getting at. I mean, the bullet points are there. I'm not going to, reiterate them. And so that's my intent here. The reason why I also included the resolution from 2003 is, all this stuff is on the internet, and the historical knowledge that the boards have over the years, the decisions that are made, it's summarized in the meeting minutes. But it takes nothing for somebody to go back, pick this up, it's on our website, pick it out, and then cherry pick, items and say, well, no, this is what you voted on. And then it's incumbent upon us, well, actually, it would be staff to say, yeah, the Texas legislature for Type B EDC allows us to do X, Y, and Z statutorily, right? So with this, I think it supports this in here, the decision, because you got to check the block with all these different, and this is just a draft, all right? You know, I think it's a tool, and, you know, it's something, not necessarily that, if you wanted to change it or add to it, you know, I think it would work as a guide, especially, you know, because, I mean, we're only here for, 2 years at term. And so I'm looking, down the road, and, when I'm retired and people are sitting up here, at least there's a little bit of continuity, with some business tools for a corporation, that aligns with what was voted on back in 2003. Obviously, it's legal, and then whatever the board decides and puts time and money on in that work plan, we're not wasting that staff time and money. So that was the intent of this. So I'm open to, input and all of that, not necessarily saying that, I totally disagree. I was just using the splash pad as a case example, a year after the fact, reflecting on that and trying to figure out, why I voted that way. Though, I mean, it could be too complicated, it can be too complex, but I don't know. That's just my input in terms of a matrix.
I think in the discussion or what you presented was good, and then referencing, the vote as they depicted here, somewhat maybe premature, based upon economic times for the approval of $500,000. It didn't really play out, so probably having some form of matrix describing the work plan as things move forward and these expenditures is probably beneficial factors, so that you have some continuity as things move forward, as people change. That's always an inherent governmental type issue. People are always moving. The train's always moving. People are always getting off, and new people are getting on. So there probably needs to be something with that, so that people can pick up from where somebody left off and have some better guidelines to follow, so that you're not reinventing the wheel or somebody arbitrarily making decisions about something that either was already made, and especially when it was voted on, at the city level. So, Stevie?
Oh, I think that we should all study this in case there's changes, but I think it's a very good idea to have them.
I think I came in the tail end of the splash pad thing. I think it was already,
Yes,
that was already something that was voted on. I don't think is that still an ongoing, Ron?
It's on the books. We have not moved forward with it just because of everything that is happening, and so it's on the books. There's no bids out or anything else at this point. And, of course, we're always reevaluating, is that the proper area to have it, due to parking, due to whatever else, and we'll continue to do so.
So it's on the books, but is it approved, funded?
It is approved, it has been approved, funded, both between, EDC and council for approving, and like I said, it's an approved project at this point. It just hasn't gone forward to actually start in process.
I don't know the full background on it. I know there was some prior discussion where we talked about bringing in other businesses within the city of Helotes and utilizing funding within the city guidelines to increase the business proposition within the city limits. 500,000 may be excessive. It's already approved and budgeted. I don't know, that may not be able to be changed, but I don't know if the thought process has been out there about trying to bring in an organization that would, instead of a splash pad per se, something that is a little bit larger that would attract more people locally around, not just people within the city. I guess a splash pad kind of attracts people within the very immediate vicinity, city of Helotes. Or if you have something a little bit larger.
Not necessarily, Ron.
Well,
If we put it on the website, and again.
yeah, I mean, we might get some.
Well,
I mean, I agree.
Well, it depends. I mean, people that go to the Pearl come from everywhere. I mean,
Mhm.
when you go to the Pearl, they come from every part of the town, hemisphere too. I mean, people from this side of town and Helotes go all the way downtown to the hemisphere to go to that splash pad and then to go eat and shop in that retail area. The same with the Pearl, because they can sit there, watch their kids, have a drink, have lunch, you know what I mean?
And I think that's the key, that it's tied into some other attraction, like retail, dining, drinking.
I mean, I don't know how much revenue or projection of revenue that we're going to produce from having a splash pad, owning and maintaining it, versus an outside agency that actually is coming in. They pick up all that responsibility. We still gain assumable revenue from that as a benefit in a larger scale process.
And like I said, with everything with COVID right now, everything's kind of put on hold until we figure out what the new norm is going to be.
So the 500,000, that was, there were 2 agenda items that were included on that, agenda that day, where the city asked us for, commitment of funds, and it came around 500,000. The splash pad was estimated to be between 275 and 300,000. Now, I'm putting us all in here just because I wanted bullet points to show everybody what my thought process was back then, and how I got to this matrix now, and then looking at all the information, the discussion with Marion, and if you're still looking at site selection and all that, and the city's amenable to, saying, hey, let's try and do a Pearl model, something like that. I mean, right now, as presented, this was just a, hey, here's a matrix, so number one, I don't jump to conclusions next time something, is brought up that's not in the strategic work plan. Because I'm making decisions based on work we've done, in that work plan and the goals we are. And like Stevie just pointed out, that it does meet a goal of the A-tripping goal. So had I had this, and see where I'm going with this, I would have looked back at the strategic work plan, bullet point for bullet point, and see which projects were under which goal. I'm not saying change it, because if there is a possibility we could marry that up with a different site that supports local businesses and brings people to them, instead of putting it over there on 15, 16. But that's a whole different discussion. That's not the point I'm trying to make. Tonight was just about, here's the case study I was working through in my mind, because I don't know what else is going to be presented to us in terms of projects. And I want to make sure, and I'll use this on my own, but as a businessman, continuity is important to me. And so, there's, a good example is, as a sole proprietor, there's a continuity plan if I have to be hospitalized for COVID. All right, that's already done and taken care of. That's just one of many different types of tools that I have. And I think Marion's suggestion a few meetings ago when we discussed this, I think this is a lot better than what I initially proposed, back in March, a market study, which would have been crazy, because that would have cost a lot of money. And guys like me charge a lot of money to do that. It takes a lot of data, and at the end of the day, it's like a business plan. Once it's printed, it's perishable. What one person feels about, having this project or whatever will change with the wind, and almost drastically would have changed, obviously, and the opposite if we had done a market study and wasted all that money. So Marion's idea here of this decision tree, I think is, it took me who knows, 2 days of revisions throughout a day, you know, and versus, you know, spending 15K on a market study for a project over 10K or whatever. So I think it's a good tool, and you know, I'm up for suggestions. I mean, it's just a discussion item, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all ought to think about it, and I like the idea, but I can see some revisions I'd want to suggest, and I imagine every other director would too, give it some thought and come back to it next time.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to throw a couple things in if I could.
Okay.
To your point saying about Helotes only using the splash pad, if you really want to know who's using that area, just look at the Frisbee Golf Course, because I live 2 streets down from there, and it's very heavily utilized from not people in Helotes and people from Helotes.
So you don't want a pool in your backyard?
No, I have one already. I'm fine. I'm totally down with it. I did not vote on the splash pad thing. I was privy to some of it, but I came on right after that. I certainly like the idea of a flow chart. I think that this is, I'm big into simplicity, and I think this is almost as simple as we can get it. I think we can kind of do a few very minor edits to clean it up. For me, the flow chart is basically, does this fit into what we're doing? Does it, first of all, does it fit into our bylaws? Does it fit into what we want to do? And how does it benefit the community? For me, I didn't like the splash pad, using that example, because it's really a great example, truthfully. I'm not trying to rehash it, and neither is anybody else. I didn't like it there because it didn't do anything for local business. That's what we're here for, is to promote Helotes and local business. And the only business that's going to benefit from the splash pad is the Shell station, because that's where people are going to go to get Gatorade and snacks. You know, because it's the next closest business, and that's great. I'm not trying to detract from that. I think we can do better, and I think that we can utilize that $300K that it would have cost, and put it somewhere and be able to develop that area, because we can't put any business or anything like, I mean, we can't put a food truck, you know, over there as an example. You know, there's just not the space, and I don't know that that's an ideal spot. However, I think that the flow chart certainly fits what I see in my mind, and kind of what I use in my own thought process as I'm learning through being here in these meetings. You know, what's the overall goal of the EDC? What's the overall goal of this board? Like, what are each of our individual goals and considerations? How does this project fit into it, and how does it benefit the community directly? And I think we're, in hearing about the splash pad and catching on the tail end of it, I think the discussion was, yeah, this is a good idea for the city, but it was never proposed how. Like, how is it going to benefit, other than being super cool and bringing a lot of people into it? Okay, great, that's fantastic, we want that, but how does it make money? So, and using that as an example. So I think Matthew, I think your flow chart is a great idea, and I think it's certainly something we need to do. I think it has the potential to really help a lot of people. I think it's good as it stands. I think we could kind of deliberate for hours about how to make it slightly better with only marginal improvements. You know, I don't know that it's necessarily worth the effort. I think you've done a great job of putting it all together, and I absolutely support it. So.
Catherine?
Catherine, do you have any comments?
She probably can't
See if you
hear.
can hear.
Do we lose her?
Catherine,
I'm here.
There we go.
do you have any comments?
I like the tool, but I would still like people to bring forth information of anything that they would like to suggest, like, because the mayor brought this to us. And if it fits, then go, you know, if it fits the tool, then yes, of course we move on it. And if it doesn't, then we, as a team of directors, we decide if it fits or not.
I agree with that, and you said about suggestions, and, we brought up the point about though, tool or location, but yes, we probably have people that definitely will be using it. At the same time, I guess I'm probably straying a little bit off from the main point here as far as the matrix use. That I think that there's other ideas in it as part of the discussion about having the matrix, and because we don't all see where some of the discussions were at, or where it's going, or where it's already been in the development process, that I think there's a lot of good suggestions that are out there, proposals possibly, that maybe haven't been presented. I can't remember the name. There is the UTSA has a place behind UTSA. I forget what the name is.
The block.
The block. So, I don't know. I'm just thinking this is that, we talk about the planning process and how we benefit from it as a city, overall usage. The block, I've been going there for a number of years, probably from about the time that its conception, and I'll tell you what, you would think a simple idea like what they started over there was so small, but how big and popularity it became, not only with just students that would go there, but myself as a non-student. I go there, try to act like a student, but but it was like a really good thing. There was a lot of people there. Huh? Yeah, there was a lot of activity, and believe it or not, what will be good is, their food vendor trucks that they have there's a standing list as a vendor to get in there. And it's a dogfight to get in there because the business is good, it's fairly steady, it's pretty consistent, there's money to be made. So it's a very highly profitable piece. And they sell beer. So,
Could have led with that one.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to end discussion. We discussed direction on creating a policy decision matrix that will be utilized to evaluate project expenditures over 10,000.
I don't believe that's an action item. I don't think this is an action item.
We had a motion and a second to discuss the item.
Yes.
We're just discussing tonight, correct?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a discussion.
It's just discussion.
Any
It's not-
discussion?
Now, if you wanna give direction about, do you wanna bring it back with some ideas? You can send your ideas to myself and Glenn, that we can, put something together with your ideas to kind of fine tune this matrix. That would help, and we can come back with the final matrix for y'all to vote on, or do you wanna come back with another discussion? Because like Blaine isn't here, we do have some board members that aren't here and have not been able to see it. That is up to y'all, what you want the next item to be. If you want it to be one more discussion, so more, other board members that aren't present can view it one more time, and then we can finalize it and bring it back to the next board meeting, in October, because it would be September and then October to do a final vote on it, or do you want to, since they did get a copy of the packet, ask them to review it, look at the video, and then give us notes for us to help finalize it and bring it back as an action. That is up to y'all. We just need some direction on what y'all want.
Okay.
I think because we don't have everybody here, even though some people do, we have the packet, that I think we bring it to a further discussion.
Okay.
Finalize it.
Okay. I just want you to know in October, it's probably gonna be a special meeting. We are having election here and early voting, so we will not be able to have a regular meeting. So we will send out dates for y'all in October. I just wanna give you a heads up on that. And the only reason I'm telling you is because we know about that. Our city secretary already forewarned us that October, if we're gonna have a meeting in October, it will have to be a special meeting because we can't have it on our regular date.
No further discussion? I'll make a motion to go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
I'll second.
Everybody say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned at 8:08, 11 p.m.
Bye, Bob.
Hour and a half. I was really trying to watch it.